And here we talk about domain names. If you're joining me on Restream, just know that this is a live stream. All the content, not all the content, the domain names we mentioned will self-destruct about the end of the week. So each week we come to you live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the domain names that are going to be expiring this week. So join us, learn, but join us each week while we're live. So we welcome everybody that's watching us on Restream. Live is the way to do it. Plus, you get to hang out with everybody in the community, which I see them coming in now and saying hi, which thank you, everybody. Make sure you say hi when you get here. And if you are watching on Restream, make sure you comment and let us know you're here as well. So one of the things that I hear pretty frequently with domain names is all the good ones are taken and the opportunities are passed. And maybe you're thinking that when you think about domain names. Maybe you're thinking, this Drew guy, he's all in on domain names. It makes sense because he was in early or something like that. And I'm just want to let you know, like, if you're watching this and you care enough about domain names to spend time looking through some expired domain names with me and the community here, just know there's still opportunity for you. There's lots of opportunity. In fact, the best domain names I have are domain names I've only purchased over the last few years. So you are early enough to find the opportunity and to get it for yourself, to gain it, to create the future that you're looking for, and lots of opportunity to be had. So just want to make sure that you know that this is real. Like, this is real stuff. Like, the domain names we're going to look at, you're going to have the opportunity to buy just like me. Now, the key is gaining the wisdom, gaining the knowledge to where you feel comfortable that when you are buying a domain name that may cost $1,000 or so, that it is worth it to you, that you know you can deliver for your family, that you're not just taking a risk just because. I don't want you taking a risk because I have taken risks. I want you to take a risk because you believe in yourself and you can do this. So just want to kind of mention that. And if you're wondering, you can still hand register domain names. There's still $10 domain names out there. Just you have to hold them for a really long time, most likely, and you still have to buy the right ones. So I just wanted to kind of mention that as everybody comes on into the chat room. If you haven't already, let us know where you're joining from. Make sure you say hi. We are going to be looking at some great domain names, including that domain name that's over $251,000 currently over on the GoDaddy auctions. We'll talk about why that domain is going so much. And even though, here's a little teaser, I did talk about it on an impromptu stream on Friday, which you should subscribe. Subscribing is how you get in on those impromptu streams. That domain name isn't even words, it's only numbers. So what can you do with just a number domain name? We'll talk about that a little bit and why it's going for over $250,000 just once we get started. See you on the other side.
From domain to profit, from a .com to a business idea. Take a domain name, develop an income from domain to profit. We'll show you how. Domain to profit, from domain to profit. Join Drew Walsh and get started right now.
Alrighty, I see lots of people coming in. I saw that Matt was coming in with a yo-yo, and then we got Chaz, the Coaster G, coming in with the yo. Just so you know, yo-yo is a trademark term. Just if anybody cares to know that. Bill, nice to have you here. Nice to see you. David, welcome. I appreciate the kind words that you have in chat. And let me just put this up here as well, just because HTML and CSS, those two are the first. I love that you're starting there. So many people want to dive into code and into more complicated things. I started in HTML and CSS. And in fact, when my wife was starting to develop a domain name before she was my wife, I started her with HTML and CSS as well. It is the place to start, in my opinion. From there, I usually would say to a scripting language like a JavaScript or so on. So but love to see that you're doing the hard work. So, Stuart, nice to have you here as well, and Mike, nice to see you as well. One of our regulars for sure. So, nice to see everybody here. We got some pretty good domain names here. I'm gonna have to jump around on the filters that we're using because, well, the filters that we typically use on a Monday won't catch some of the domain names, including that big one, that $250,000 domain name that we're going to see. So let me pop over here, Here we are over on expired domain names, expireddomains.net, expireddomains.net. You'll see that up in that. This is where we spend a lot of our time. This is a free search engine, set up a free account, and you could search through hundreds of thousands, actually even millions of domain names that are being deleted, expiring, and just available domain names, all through expireddomains.net, a free service. They make their money when you click the link. So click the links, use them, support them. It does not cost anything to do that. So I highly encourage and ask you to do that. I have no skin in the game other than I really appreciate the tool that they provide us here. So I want to start with that $250,000 domain name. I want to go over and we're just going to come into expireddomains.net like you might come in the very first time. You come in, you set up your user account, your screen will be white. I have mine set up for a dark background just because I like it, just a preference. Then if you come into Marketplace Domains, and then we're going to go down to GoDaddy expired domains here. Once we do that, it's going to pull up this list. And then for the sake of showing you the most expensive domain names that are showing up this week, I'm going to order by the price and order by the price again, which is going to, which one do you think is going to be on top? Yep, that's right. $251,000. Look at that. That's a big, I've never bought a domain name for that much to date. So that's somebody out there is buying this domain name. What's the domain name? Well, if you joined me on Friday, you saw the domain name is 801.com, 801.com, which I noticed today as I was typing, I found it kind of interesting. This is show week 108. So just the reverse of that domain name. This is week 108 of Domain to Profit. But the domain name that's going for $251,000 currently is 801.com. So if you're like me, you're kind of like, what is going on? Like, how does this domain name become up? What gives a domain name like 801 the value? Where does it get the value to come up with that? And the answer is, well, to start the week, I thought it was just a play where 801 was probably, something out of Asia. They were just wanting the domain name. But then as I started to look into it a little bit more and see the chatter happening over on Twitter and the domain community, I started to figure out and realize that 801 is a zip code in, I believe, Salt Lake City. So let's actually look it up. 801, yes, Salt Lake City. So it's the main zip code, or I'm sorry, the main area code in Salt Lake City. So how does that have value? Well, glad you asked, because this is exactly what we do when it comes to domain names. We want to find domain names that gain value from just existing. So 801.com, what can you put on that? Where does the value come from? Well, 801.com, if everybody's typing in the phone numbers over and over and over again, they're used to seeing 801. So that's a very short URL, a very short domain name to represent Salt Lake City. In fact, wasn't it back in the day to, all the raps and we're like, I'm in the 513. Well, I'm in the 513, but you're in your own zip area code. But 801 is the area code. So if you were to put a billboard which one of the things that drives me nuts about billboards is the domain names sometimes that people put up on them are just horrible. You have just a couple seconds of somebody driving by in a car, and I've seen them where they have like Z's for S's. I just saw this last week, a domain name that was like Sky Skills with a Z or something like that. And it's like somebody's driving by, I'm flying by 70 miles an hour. I look up, I see your domain name. Only because I pay attention to domain names did I even see that there's a Z in the domain name instead of an S. So if you're going to pay $10,000 a month or more for your billboards, doesn't it make sense to make sure you have a great domain name that people can see and immediately know where to go? I mean, what a game changer that is for business to have like perfect recall from every car that goes flying by your billboards, not to mention radio commercials and everything else. That's where the value comes for these domain names, including 801.com. Ends in 2 days over on GoDaddy auctions, $251,000. Pretty easy to say that I am not going to be bidding on this one. Although there's a version of me out there that would probably be interested in this one for sure. Just not right now. And I did pull up SpyFu. This is SpyFu. I pulled this up. We use SpyFu, which is spyfu.com, as a tool. There's some data that's available to you free. We use a paid subscription. And you can see 801 area code, 85,000 searches for that. 801, another 4,000. There's thousands of people that are searching for this. And what does it represent? It just represents Salt Lake City. So there you go. That's kind of my thought on it. What would you do with it? That's always a question I have is how would you make money? Okay, well, $250,000. You can do it as a local directory. I just saw Entrepreneur Names pop in, and he was telling me about a local domain that he was going to develop out. And local domains are certainly an option where you can 801.com slash pet grooming or grooming, 801.com slash liquor store, 801.com slash any different type of service, or you can just sell 801.com slash company name and give them a URL that's probably even going to be better than if they use their own custom domain name, right? 801 is so short that even if you toss on at the end of it, 801.com slash towing for your towing, like that's a great URL. That's a great path, easy to see, easy to remember, a gateway to handle the local domain name. And I was kind of curious. Yeah, this is what I was hinting at. I talked about this a little bit on Friday. Let me bring this comment up on the screen by Islander. The Chinese love numerical domain names, which I've heard that. I've not sold them. I know of people that have made a lot of money selling numerical domain names. I thought that's what was happening with this one. I'm just not so sure. I think it's a big enough zip code that it is likely going to somebody that's interested in that domain name. So there you go, 801.com. And, who's dumb enough to let that expire? Maybe they die. Who knows why these expired domains expire. I certainly do not know. Death is certainly something that could have happened. And let that be a lesson to all of us. Make sure your domain names are registered for long periods of times, auto renew, and have a plan. I will admit that I've just over the last few months set up my plan for domain names and how they pass on and so on. So it's one of those things we ignore, but yes, that could be what it is. That could be what's happening here. So 801.com. And as you can see right here, I have it ordered over on the GoDaddy list. Let me see how much I can get up here. Text is going to be a little bit small here, but you can see there's 3 domain names. Actually, I got to go even out a little bit more here. Sorry. I know it's really small now. 801.com, dzb.com, 8839.com. all of those domain names up over $10,000 each, several more coming up. And those domain names, most of them are not even going to show up as we get into the meat of the show, which is looking through expired domain names using our filters, the filters that we use here on domain to profit. So you'll see right now, we have no filters set up. 440,000 domain names are going to be available through GoDaddy auctions. That's just GoDaddy auctions. That's not including the drop catch domain names, namejet domain names, name silo. There's so many other aftermarket domain names available. For the most part, here on this show, Domain to Profit, we spend our time on GoDaddy expired domain names primarily just because that's where the bulk of them are. But you as a domain investor, you as somebody that's looking for your opportunity, spend time on a lot of these lists and find the one that you're looking for the best. So now we are going to set up the filters. I usually use a shortcut to set up the filters, but it's been a while since we've went through them. Let's go ahead and set them up manually now. So first thing first, this middle section, we get rid of numbers. In most cases, I don't want to see numbers. Number domain names are not my thing. I look for words. Obviously, lots of people spend a lot of money on number domain names. But if you don't know why somebody's paying $251,000 for 801.com, chances are you don't want to play that game. That's not your game. You're looking for a different opportunity. So join me in getting rid of numbers, then get rid of hyphens. Hyphens have no place in domain names really anymore. Then we want to go down to English words. On this show, we look at domain names that are English primarily, and we go 1 to 3 words. Does that get rid of opportunities? Absolutely. By doing that, that does, in fact, get rid of some domain names where there may be abbreviations that make sense. There may be domain names that you will miss out on for the sake of getting rid of words. But when you're looking through hundreds of thousands of domain names, it's really important that you learn things that are going to save you time. You know, it's just, can you find deals at 4 domains? Yeah, absolutely. Or 4 words? Absolutely. In fact, if you are looking for a domain name for a couple $100 or less, I would probably say go ahead and do 2 to 4 words versus 1 to 3 words. But I find that 3 words is the max. When I add in that 4th word, it tosses in many, many domain names that it's a bit exhausting looking through. Over on the ends date, over here, we want to go ahead and set that to 8 days. That's because we're doing Domain to Profit, a weekly show. So every Monday we come back in and look at the next 7 days of domain names. 8 days just includes today. So it will include next Monday. So that way we don't miss out on any domain names that might be ending next week's show. Finally, we go to this additional tab that is right over here. And here is probably the most controversial thing we do, which is we go .com only. .com is the domain extension of choice for developers, for business investors, domain name investors. .com's it. The way I think of this is this right here. If you were to invest in a .net, a .io, a .xyz domain name, and say you love it, say you buy something like autotowing.com, and you take that domain name and you turn it in, autotowing.xyz, for example, and you turn that domain name into a success, and you're making thousands of dollars a month, you will always be worried about the .com. You will always want to own that .com. So why start your purchase with something that's going to create anxiety or loss of opportunities in the future? You know, you can, and if you can generate revenue off of a non.com domain, that's great. But I choose to have as less stress in my life as possible, and that includes not looking at anything other than .com domain names. Finally, we click the apply filters. That takes us from this 440,000 domain names this week down to 93,000 domain names. So you can see there's still quite a bit of work to do to find the domain names that we're looking for. And then for the sake of this show, we look at two primary orders to order the data by, and that's primarily valuation, which is provided by GoDaddy. You won't have this on all the lists, but for the GoDaddy domain names, it is provided. What does valuation mean? Valuation is not the value of the domain name. It is instead, think of it as an order code. It is to determine which domain name belongs at the top of the list. So it's not really meant to place a value as much as it's to say this domain name should be at the top of the list. If you think of it that way, it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache, because if you buy a domain name based on that, oh my goodness, you're gonna have headaches for sure. The other way that we order domain names is by CPC, which we've shown you on past shows how to add in that column. Let me go ahead and do that this time, since I've taken some time to set up the filters. To add the CPC, which is cost per click, that's how much somebody's paying in the Google ad system, how much they pay per click. You go over to the column manager, then you expand the Google Ads Global, and there you're going to find the CPC, the global approximate Google Ads cost per click. So you can see we have that added. Then once you do that, voila, it's going to add it to your domains, and you are ready to go. Ready to go. And let's get back to the list, please. Okay. So there we go. All of that, 20 minutes in, we've talked about the $251,000 801.com domain name that's going out for auction. That's that Salt Lake City domain name. We've set up our filters again. We've added in the CPC column, but currently we are ordered by valuation. And if you followed along and came up with those filters, you are seeing the exact same list that I have right now. So at home, watching live, you can follow along and see the same domain names. And at the top of the list are going to be the most valuable domain names. And as we go down, they're going to get less valuable in theory. Torrents.com, you'll see this is one of the things that you got to keep in mind. This is why a human's going to be better than a machine. They have it broken down as torrents with a Z. Torrents is actually one single word. It's basically a search engine to go through decentralized stuff. Not really something I would ever mess with. It's more of a brand, probably something. The primary one, torrents. I think it's EU is the main domain name. So .com would be an upgrade. I don't play that game though. I don't buy domain names to try to capitalize on something else. Don't buy a domain name to capitalize on something someone else has built on. I think it's a pretty good rule of thumb. There you go. So some of the domain names I've mentioned on the cover image for this show, one of them was singsing.com, which I just thought it was kind of a fun domain name. Singsing.com is a prison in New York, as well as when I did a search for it, because I wasn't sure if that's actually how you spell the prison name. I did a Sing Sing search to see what it shows up. I noticed it's one of the most, whatever the heck this guy is. He's a Twitch streamer that's pretty active. Again, I wouldn't buy it for the sake of capitalizing on him. If you do that, again, you're trying to buy a domain name to capitalize on something somebody else has built. That is not what domain to profit is about. Domain to profit is about buying something that you can build, that you can own, that you can create value through. So don't get caught up in that. But hey, it is a popular prison. I've certainly heard it in many, many shows. So if you have maybe a video game, you want to do singsing.com, I can see different reasons to possibly look at that domain name. Either way, it's available. Might be interesting to some of you out there to purchase. Probably my top domain name of the show that I've seen pre-show is this one here, which is leadcapture.com. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Let's see what this one comes up with. Leadcapture.com. Over $2,000 currently, 6 days left in the auction. And lead capture, well, let's go to the tools. Let's not go with Drew's gut. I think we've learned that I try not to do that. I want you to have ways to look at domain names that does not require me, right? I want you to learn this stuff for yourself. So that's why we use SpyFu, is to get an idea of how the domain name, what's the purpose of it, what is out there, what value is there. Lead capture, 750 exact searches happening for it. And the reason why I love this domain name is this right down here. You can see the cost per click, well over $10. That's a 1 thumb up. And then you have advertisers up over 10, 2 thumbs up, people. This is a domain name where people are competing to reach this keyword on Google. When you see competition, when you see high numbers, that means people are competing for this keyword. What does competition mean? It means they're looking for new ways to gain an advantage over their competition. So if you buy leadcapture.com, you can either sell it, you can look to buy it for low enough and sell it to one of those people that want to just buy it. That's the quick way to possibly make a little money. Maybe you might get stuck with an expensive domain name. But instead, if you have a business idea that you can put on leadcapture.com, maybe you already own, I do trade shows, and at those trade shows, a lot of times you can use they'll sell an app that you can use your phone and you scan people's badges and get their lead information that they register at that trade show with, their email address, name, phone number. So there's already lead capture companies out there that work these trade shows. So maybe you can either run one of those companies if you want to do the full out service. But I always recommend going the route of taking a domain name like leadcapture.com, and instead of creating a lead capture service, instead find all the services that already do lead capture and just let them rent some space from you. Let them have some real estate on leadcapture.com. So what does that look like? For this one, there's no localization, meaning there's no, people aren't looking for lead capture near me necessarily. In that case, it's kind of a national one. Keep it down to maybe 6 to 8 different companies and give them some featured spot on the site, maybe 250 or more for some space. Let them have a customizable profile and so on. Set up that reoccurring revenue, which is treating this domain name exactly what it is, which is digital real estate, right? If you bought real estate out on the web and you want to, if you buy real estate, physical real estate, you can build something on that real estate. You could take something that's already built on it and you can maybe rent it out. The same kind of stuff happens with your domain name. If it's a quality enough domain name, people will lease your domain name. They want to borrow part of that domain name. Just like, some places, there's so much traffic that you can just put a billboard up on that domain, on that real estate, and generate some revenue. Same kind of thing with domain names, except we don't want to do parking. I'm anti-parking. I think it doesn't bring value to the world. But if you can just create a system that allows you to put up a couple companies, they pay you to feature their products on leadcapture.com. That's pretty good money, pretty quick. That's what I do at leadcapture.com if I was to buy it. But over $2,000 already, I don't like it for that much. I'm out on this one. Yeah, I'm out on this one. 6 days left on that one. If you are in that business, if you're out there looking for your first domain name and you're kind of like, hey, I have some, maybe even hundreds or thousands of dollars, find one that is perfect for your passion. Don't go diving into random industries like I did with towing.com and things. Although wasn't completely random. I got a little lucky, like I was able to figure it out. But ideally, you have some expertise in the industry you are working in. So Friday, I talked a little bit about this one here, contentshop.com, and that impromptu live stream that I did. Let's pull this one up here. Contentshop.com, $65 currently, ends in 4 days. What would you put on Content Shop? I talked about it last week. There's not a lot of exact match keywords happening for this one, but what I would do with Content Shop would be you can either do a directory of content shops, like local businesses or internet businesses that that provide content. There's lots of companies out there that essentially hire people to create content for websites. You can put a directory of them, so that way people can find companies that create content for them. Or if you own a content shop or already create content for many websites or something, maybe you want to have a great brand for your company. This would be one of them. Contentshop.com. I like it. I will probably put, it's more of a brandable, in my opinion. I wouldn't use it probably as a directory. I like it for a few $100s. If I was to develop it, maybe a little bit more. But contentshop.com, not bad, not bad. Okay, let's keep on moving down. And we talked about cool cities, I believe, last week. That one's probably ended or ending soon. Gift. Yeah, and your Stuart's chiming in. Thank you for the comment about that. I agree. I'm not a big fan of the name shop, but that's probably part of why I wouldn't spend a ton of money on that domain name for sure. It's pretty good. And yeah, let me just pull this up as well. Kevin's adding, we need a domain to profit NamesCon meetup for all that's going to the show. Hey, if you're going to NamesCon, make sure you grab me. You'd be surprised. Like I go between extrovert, introvert, but come up, say hi, let me know who you are. And I'm all like, I do this show because I love domain names, developing domain names. So we can chat. In fact, NamesCon asked me to do some roundtables. So 2 days during lunch, I will be, we're just at a roundtable session talking domain development. So grab your lunch, come hang out with me, and we can talk about your development projects at NamesCon. Not sure if we'll pull together much more than that, but that's what, 90 minutes, 2 days in a row. So that should be enough. All righty. Let's see here. Back over to the domains. But I do hope to see many of you in NamesCon or in Austin if you're going. And what is that? It's a domain name conference. Yes. Did you know there was such a thing? When I found out about it, I was like, what? Other domain name nerds exist? Yeah, there's lots of us actually. So Matt in my office mentioned buildingcompany.com, which I will point out, it is an enom domain name, which if you know what we kind of talk about on the show sometimes, enom domain names typically do not actually go through the auction process. They only show up here for a little bit. So we don't talk about them much. But I just want to point out with buildingcompany.com, there's a point that a domain name becomes too generic. And I think with buildingcompany.com, that's one of the cases. What building company? Like what the heck does that even mean? What's a building company? I have no idea. It's too generic. It'd be like the domain name generic.com. What's it mean? Who knows what it means? So there is a point where I love keyword generic domain names, towing.com, photobooths.com, djs.com. I love those kinds of domain names, but buildingcompany.com, not really something that I think is as good of a domain name as what I would typically like to have. So let's keep on moving down. You know, the perfect days domain, I think I mentioned that possibly last week. This one ends soon, I believe. Yeah, ends tomorrow. Up over 4,400. I'm skipping it. I don't think it's anywhere close to worth that. Hair look. Keto diets. Let's check this one out. This isn't my kind of domain name, but I don't want to only feature domain names that I love or that I plan on buying. I want to feature domain names that you may be interested in as well. I believe keto diets are a thing. Let's find out. Let's check the keyword volume. Me2 Entrepreneur. Yeah, and entrepreneur is like, we try to drop a lot of wisdom here. So even though the content, like the domain names that we look at, they're going to be gone next week. But the behind the scenes, like what's actually happening, why do we look at certain domains? Why do we ignore other ones? That stuff each week, it's great. It's like training. You're training your domain mind. You're learning which domain names are worth the attention and which ones to skip. In fact, if you see a domain name, everyone, as always, if you see a domain name that I'm skipping in the list that you're like, hey, why is he not talking about that one? Feel free to mention it in chat. I'll tell you why. Or maybe I missed it. That happens too. KetoDiets.com. So this is what I was kind of expecting. There's some keyword. I'm guessing as I scroll down, we'll either see no advertisers or many. So 14 advertisers, cost per click 0. And there's probably a reason for what's happening here. This here, you can see that the cost per click 0, even though the advertisers are 14. And what's happening here most likely is Google tends to not anything that's like middle of the road, drug supplements, there's a lot of content that basically Google won't allow people to pay to advertise under. To you, as a domain investor, this is an opportunity though. You can see there's people that want to target this keyword. They love this keyword. There's searches for this keyword, as shown by this right here. Over 2,000 searches that are happening for KetoDiets.com. So where's that money going? What's actually happening? Well, right now, nobody's getting it. So you as a domain owner, you can develop KetoDiets.com. Maybe you have a directory of personal chefs or people that have meal plans or will prep your meal. You do a directory of that, personal trainers. Like dive into what it is that somebody that is looking for a keto diet, what services and value can you bring to them, and then find the people that provide those services, trainers, personal chefs, dietitians, accountability partners, just general community. You put up a website that allows people to be that are interested in those topics to come and interact with it, and you make your money as the middle person. You're just operating the real estate and facilitating that community and allowing people to benefit from KetoDiets.com. I actually like this domain name quite a bit. $66 currently, ends in 4 days. So why is it so cheap currently? That means hold off on bidding, right? Hopefully you hear this almost every week. When a domain name is cheap, do not bid on that domain name until the last few minutes. These auctions extend in the last 5 minutes. So you want to bid on this domain name, 5 minutes, 10 seconds left is when you want to enter in your proxy bid, your top bid, or at least a really high bid, close to what you want to bid for it. What happens then when you wait to bid, it draws less attention to this domain name. You don't want to bring people like me into these domain names. I spend about this time right here. I spend an hour with you live looking through expired domains, and probably another hour at some point throughout the week looking through expired domains. And I come into this right here. I do order by valuation, order by top bids. I look through those lists, and when you bid on a domain name early, say you're like, oh, I'd pay $1,000 for it, and you put $1,000 in there right now. If that domain name goes up to $800, you are essentially pulling that list or that domain name up to the top of the list. For guys like me that didn't even know the domain name was available, you are alerting us. You're like, red flag, hey, you might have missed an opportunity. And there's lots of people out there that have big money ready to spend on domain names. So wait 5 minutes, 10 seconds. That's when you bid on these. Anything earlier than that, if you really want it and it's like a primary domain for you, don't go to it too early. You want to wait as long as possible. If it's not important to you, then sure, whatever. Checking out chat here. Oh, awesome, Stuart. This is why we do this. I love it. This is why, you're part of an awesome community when you're here live. Stuart sharing, there's lots of super high paying Cato affiliate programs and ClickBank. ClickBank.com is basically a payment processor that handles an affiliate program. So you can go there, find products and services that they'll pay you commission on. So clickbank.com. Thanks for mentioning that, Stuart. That's awesome. More happening in the chat. Let me see. So if you search for Keto Diet Plan, there are about 7 in the search results. So someone's paying. Okay. So in that case, what he's referring to there is, if you recall, over on SpyFu, down at the bottom here, you'll see that right now the advertisers are 14, but the cost per click right up here is 0. So what's happening there? Well, Stuart's showing that he actually did a search for it. There are people paying to advertise and show up there. So this could be just an error. Could just be bad data or whatever. So certainly worth checking out. And let me see, Stuart. Yeah, I appreciate all these comments. These are good. This is good stuff. Yeah. So if you find a domain name with no bids, would I still bid at the last minute? Absolutely. I bid. Man, this would put me off on a little bit of a tangent here, but let me take off my screen for 1 second. So what I'm going to do is, this actually brings up a point for a domain name that I was bidding on last week. So what happens with domain names that are in these expiring auctions is they become available in auction, they go through the auction process, and if no one bids on a domain name, that domain name goes into what is like a buy now type period. That's what Stuart's referring to here. Is he's referring to these the closeout buy it now prices, which one of the domain names from last week that I was looking at did this. And I am logging into GoDaddy right now, and I will show you an example. I believe it always redirects me to the wrong place. I got to click around. Let's see if it's still there. Okay, here we go. Visible. So if you recall, I just casually mentioned the domain name visiblereviews.com. So I mentioned that one last week. I added it to my watch list. Why? It's just it has an inside joke to us. On one of our websites, we have hidden invisible reviews. So I thought it was funny. But you'll see here, the current price for this domain name is $5. So you can, so right now I can literally come in here and buy this. You could buy this domain name for $5 plus the renewal fee. What's happening there? It goes through the auction period. If no one bids on that domain name, it then goes into this buy it now type period, which I think lasts like 5 days or 3 or 4 days. During that period, it starts at $50 and then counts down until $5, and then it will delete and be available for hand registration. So you can, Stuart was alluding to, you can play this game if you want to get the bottom possible price. The only thing is, it is dangerous. The first person that buys it, versus a domain name that you're buying at auction. If you value it for more than the price, you should buy it at auction. Makes sense? At least that's my opinion. Thanks for bringing that up. And I will also say, at auction, $12 is the lowest one. When it goes to buy it now, it goes up to $50 and then works its way down. So if you're the one bidder at $12, you can get it for a pretty good price as well. Good stuff, peeps. Okay, hotelsavings.com. I love the domain name. I just hate the hotel stuff. Like the idea of trying to enter into the hotel type space. That sounds like a nightmare. Actually, this is probably an enom domain. Is this domain? Come on, Drew. Figure out what you're doing. No, it's GoDaddy domain. So this one will sell. Hotelsavings.com. You know, the first thought that I have on a domain name like this is, this one ends in 2 days, $100 currently, as you can see. You know, coupons, discounts, travel things, travel packages. What you don't want to do is create a hotel search engine by availability and stuff. You're trying to compete with Expedia, Travelocity, all these other travel type services that are out there. My goodness gracious, why do that to yourself? The margins are actually quite thin. The technology is expensive. There are some APIs and stuff that you can participate in, but that'd be a great domain name if that's what you're passionate about, but I'm not into that kind of thing. But for $116, it's a good price. Hotel Savings, if you toss that into SpyFu, you'll probably find some search engine traffic. And Matt said that GoDaddy auctions is down for him. It definitely happens. It looked like it was up for me still, Matt. You know, I do like keto diets. I'm going to look at that one. I don't really have a way to develop it, but it's can't go wrong with a domain name that has thousands of searches. And yes, these are adult domain names. Yeah. So there you go. I actually saw some pretty funny adult domains. ChinaBot. I love that domain name. At Test Buddy. These are more of a brandable type domain names or just humorous domain names. Electric Solar. Weather information. You know, some of these, they sound good. They are even good domain names, but I assume I'm talking to you as an entrepreneur. I'm probably one or a small business operation. You're looking for domain names to build out to create your personal future. In that case, you want to stay away from the ones that are the big guys. In my opinion, that is. Like travel, that's why Hotel Savings, weather information, You really going to go travel or deal with all the weather websites that have been around forever and try to build up a revenue model? I just highly recommend you, unless you're a meteorologist and you just love weather, why do that to yourself? Marketing to go. Jacob saying, type in traffic and equal to affiliate offer, easy peasy. So let me put that up here for 1 second and just mention, yes, these domain names do get type in traffic. So it's not what it used to be, but type in traffic is that traffic where people just type in great domain names to kind of see what's there. We get quite a few people that just type in towing.com or any of other towing domains because they just assume there's going to be a helpful website there, which luckily there is. That's what we're out to do here. That's what I'm begging you to do, is get great domains and develop them. It's the canvas. It's a blank canvas. What is the domain name telling you to paint? Then just go paint it. Like, just give the world what they're looking for on that domain name, and you profit while you do it. So yeah, and Stuart's, you're going to get me off on a rant, Stuart. Come on, man. You know, I'm so anti-Google. Stuart's mentioning the weather. Yeah, Google is out to take all of our data and show it for their own gain without really even giving credit to the people that pull it together. What? It's an enom domain? Dang. Okay, I got to click on it. So this is, I'm clicking on computerprogrammers.com. $500 is current bid, 3 days left. Here's the thing. This is a enom domain name. So this is one of those domain names that likely won't go all the way through the redemption period. One of the downsides of enom is people can let their domains expire, and that will put it through the GoDaddy auction for a certain point, and then they renew it at the last minute, and it allows them to find out if there's interest in it. It's free marketing for them is essentially what they're doing. They're getting exposure for their domain name. So I would predict that this domain name will not actually go through the auction period. But if it did, it's a good domain name. It's a nice generic domain name. Peter Askew, which let me... Okay, I was going to say Peter Askew, who is a buddy of mine, a developer over on Twitter. Let me pull up his tweets, because he mentioned a domain name that's very relevant, or a thread that is very relevant to what we're his profile is loading. So this is Peter. His Twitter handle is searchbound. If you don't know Peter, then you should definitely on domain Twitter. You should be, because it's good stuff. So Peter's domain developer, similar to myself, and he wrote a thread that was a pretty helpful thread about developing a domain name for the purpose. I'm doing this like a lot. What do you actually expect me to have this stuff set up? I can see he sells onions on the internet, and it's not just a tagline. He sells onions on the internet. Come on. My laptop is so right now. Hopefully it's not showing up in the stream. Well, anyhow, let me just mention, you can check out Peter. He has a thread on developing domain name jobs boards. And he talks about how he does it with his jobs boards. For example, ranchwork.com, SEOjobs.com. It is a good website to a good thread to check out. I highly recommend it. And the reason I mention it with computerprogrammers.com is computerprogrammers.com jobs board, right? I mean, there's high paying stuff happening through job or computerprogrammers.com. I do a jobs board would be probably my play on computer programmers. That and just a directory of consultants and things like that. But since it's a enom, we'll go over it some. I don't want to give them too much publicity. That makes sense. Organic producers, trip checker. Okay, let me put a page down or two. Rare collection was one I have highlighted. Let's go check that one out a little bit as well. Yes, I think that we are 100% painters. We are painters indeed when it comes down to domain names, except for, let me see, that somebody, Jacob mentioned Bob Ross. It's like, Bob Ross was painting trees, right? Little happy trees. Like what we do with these domain names is not, we don't take these domain names and create like custom artwork. We just take that domain name and paint what's supposed to be on it. In fact, here you go. I'll get a little silly with it. I believe it was, man, I'm going to say this all wrong, but wasn't it Michelangelo that did the statue? David, the statue of David. I think that was Michelangelo. Is that correct? And he said, famously said, at least we assume, I assume the quote is accurate, that all he did was remove the parts of the marble that were not part of David. Like that was it. Like David was already in the marble, and all he did was remove the parts that weren't. Like these domain names, like it's already there. What it's supposed to be is already there. We just need to remove all the other stuff and just create what is supposed to be there. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I think it's a little poetic. I love that quote. And that idea. So rarecollection.com, we have not yet went to the cost per click list. We may not get to it. And by that, what I'm saying is I like to order the domain list that we look at on expired domains by cost per click. That's your homework. You may be doing that yourself. Rarecollection.com, 180 searches. I hope the stream quality is tolerable because it does seem like my laptop is getting a little laggy. No advertisers, low cost per click. I don't like that. I like to see bigger numbers for sure. Here's one opportunity to mention the Control F. So when you come in and you do a Control F on the results, so you do a search on SpyFu, and then through your browser, you do Control F. That does a search on the actual page. Then we type in the keywords again. All we're doing, dropping the .com, typing in the keywords. It will highlight them. So yes, there's 180 searches for Rare Collection directly, but you'll see here, Rare Collection of historical photos has another 440. Not really much happening. Rare Collection Xbox One, not really sure what's happening there. Not really digging the domain name. It sounded better than it actually is showing up. So let's see, 5 minutes left. I've not purchased any domain names to my knowledge. Let's go over, let's see what I've been bidding on. I like to show off the any domains that I've purchased recently, but Shop Near Me is the last one I did. That's been a couple weeks ago. I've not been very active. Let's see if I've bid on any that I've not won. Toe Life, put a little in on that one, but did not get it. Remote Backup. So again, these are weeks old. I've not been very active as a buyer. So, okay, in that case, we can come back over to expireddomains.net. And now we are ordering by cost per click. So this is where the money meets domain names. So people are paying for keywords. Now, what you're going to find with these in these last few minutes, there's going to be a lot of them that have a location in them. When it has a location, a city name, a state name, you're going to see high cost per click numbers, but in reality, that domain name is likely not worth what you might think it would be worth. Keyword domain names based on geolocations, it's a hard gig if you're going to develop out a geolocation keyword domain. So think of it like this. Let's find one real quick. Maybe not. So like here, Brooklyn Best Locksmith. That shows that people are paying $49 per click. In reality, $49 per click, there's like one search maybe. Brooklyn's Best Locksmith. Like if you buy that domain name thinking you're going to capitalize, there's too many words, there's too many letters. The domain name's not as good as what you might think, and that's why it's being let go of. It happens quite often with these location type domain names. Location domain, city or 801.com. It makes sense, right? That makes sense to possibly have 801.com or Cincinnati.com or Nashville.com. So it's great to have a city name because you can do lots with it. But once you toss on, for example, I started the show because I was talking to my son about developing CincinnatiAccountants.com. There's very little you can do with it. It's Cincinnati Accountants. It's not all over the place. Great for possibly if you're passionate about a subject, starting in one specific niche, but you're certainly not going to expand and grow in a significant way. So it's just one of those things. Don't get carried away with it. Just because it shows up on a list does not mean it's worth buying. I saw this one earlier. Roofing companies nearby. Roofingcompanies.com, great domain name. Roofing.com, great domain name. But realistically, nearby, you're talking essentially 4 words or so that you're tossing on this domain name. That makes it, yes, are people searching for it? Sure. But we're not, like back 5 years or more ago, you might have been able to rank this just because of domain name. Actually, it's probably 10 years ago or more. You could have ranked this domain name for the keyword because the domain name was great. Nowadays, you don't, like, nearby does not, it shows local results in Google. It does not show these nationwide type domain names. So keep it in mind. You have, if you're going to play the cost per click game, it's part of why I didn't do it for a long time. I didn't include looking through this. These are almost money traps in many cases. We are looking for the exact same domain names that we did on the first list, generic domain names. Get painting leads, maybe a good domain name. Because we're already at 4 o'clock, I'm going to just kind of give it one more page down. And that's a fun domain name, Walt Street Journal. Okay. Okay, in that case, there we go. I believe that is about all we are going to do. Make sure you have subscribed. I did a live stream, an impromptu live stream just last Friday. So if you want to be able to see those impromptu live streams, subscribing is the way to do it. YouTube/Drew Wash, like wash your hands and subscribe. YouTube is the way to subscribe. Or you can go to domaintoprofit.com. As well as, anybody share out the community link? No, I do not see it here. Here is our community link, at least as of right now. Community.dtp.tv. Over there, that takes you to our community. We chat a little bit and share some of the domain names we've missed out on, share some of the domain names we've purchased, as well as you'll find some content, insider information that I don't always share here because it's not ready yet. As it becomes ready, I'll share it here. But there you go. Community.dtp.tv is where we hang out. With all that said, let me browse over the chat just real quick. If I did not see or comment on your chat, I appreciate that you're here. You're the community. You all make this worth doing this show, which is why I do this. It's the one thing on my calendar. I don't like having appointments on my calendar, but you are on my calendar every single Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when I do Domain to Profit. Mix you with domain names. It's like, okay. With all that said, I appreciate you being here. You have a great week and a great day. I will see you over on Twitter and in the community. Take care.